In the mid-1990s, few games had as much hype around them as Doom. While not the original first-person shooter, it was definitely the one that took the world by storm and popularized the genre. For a while, before the term first-person shooter was even coined, the entire genre was called Doom clones. Honestly, if Doom had been released today, we'd probably call the entire genre Doom-likes, because creativity and language is dead. So what do you do in the middle of the 90s if you're a struggling cereal brand trying to sell some bland corn and rice breakfast? Well, you put Doom in your cereal. Kid me couldn't play Doom. My mom wouldn't let me. But what about a kid version of Doom disguised as cereal? For some reason, that worked, and I was obsessed with it. I remember looking at the art of the game and was like, whoa, cool! And I'd spend hours just running around with a TV remote shooting green aliens. Tom, I know that you too, when you were a kid, played this game. What did you think about it?
The story of Chex Quest is fascinating. It all started with a small software company named Digital Cafe. While they typically made websites and simple multimedia applications, they were approached by Ralston Foods, the at the time owners of the Chex brand, to create a video game that could be packaged in cereal boxes on a CD. While outside the company's wheelhouse, the studio saw the project as an exciting change of pace, so they started planning out what to create. Initially, the team was going to stick with making a game from the ground up in Macromedia Director, since that's what they usually used for their projects, but time constraints on this project made that an impossibility. Eventually, they decided to try and license the Doom engine from id Software. Since the game was 3 years old at this point and id had moved on to create Quake and Quake 2 in a brand new engine, Digital Cafe figured they could get the license on the cheap so as to not to blow their budget. Turns out, they were right. Now, this game was supposed to be a freebie included in cereal boxes. Doom was an incredibly violent, M-rated game that was the center of a lot of controversy in the early 90s when it first released. Not exactly the kind of energy the company trying to boost their sales with a gimmick would want to court. Ralston was skeptical of this idea, to say the least. But Digital Cafe also knew that Doom was still incredibly popular. If they could leverage the engine to create a game with a similar gameplay loop, but in a non-violent, kid-friendly package, the project could be a success. After creating a small demo to show Ralston Foods, they were able to get the green light, and the game that would eventually become Chex Quest was born. Playing Chex Quest is kind of a fever dream. It's a total conversion of Doom. It takes all the violent glory that was in the original 1993 landmark title and softens all the edges to make it kid-friendly enough to throw in your cereal box for free without offending parents or overly sensitive satanic panic-inclined Christians. Demons? Huh, no, not in this game. Instead of Mars being overrun by hell, Chex Quest is all about the planet Bazoink, overrun by phlegmoids, goo monsters that are cute and definitely not satanic at all. All your weapons didn't damage the monsters either. They simply teleported the phlegmoids back to their home dimension, so no more killing either. Even Doom Guy is now the Chex Warrior, a dude whose suit of armor is literally shaped like a giant piece of Chex cereal. Amazing. The most surprising thing about all of this is that Chex Quest is actually pretty good. Well, I guess it's not that surprising. It's Doom, and Doom was good, so it would actually be pretty hard to fuck up the core gameplay when you're literally copy-pasting one of the most iconic shooters of all time. But that kind of does a disservice to the map designs. They're actually really well done. Nothing nearly as complex as the original Doom, but this was a game designed for kids, so that makes sense. Just like in the original Doom, the levels are all big mazes with colored keys to find that unlock corresponding doors and secret areas tucked away. With that young audience in mind, the enemies are also significantly dumbed down. Early enemies in Chex Quest no longer have ranged attacks like the zombie soldiers and imps from the original Doom did, and later enemies in the game are less mobile than Pinkies, so the game is a lot more approachable. Doom's iconic arsenal is also given a kiddie coat of paint as well. Chain guns? Rocket launchers? Now they're all Zorchers, items that are very specifically designed not to look like normal guns and stay as far on the good side of sensitive parents as possible. The starting handgun is now a little remote-controlled styled laser Zorcher. The shotgun becomes a bigger version of this with a reloadable cartridge on the side, the chain gun becomes a rapid-fire Zorcher, and the plasma rifle is now the Scorching Zorcher. But what about the punching and the iconic chainsaw? They're now a spoon and an electric spork. You know, because cereal. The game was made on a shoestring budget though, in a tight development window. Because of that, the original Chex Quest only had 5 levels, far less than the actual Doom game. Still, for a freebie in a box of cereal, that's quite the bargain. Chex Quest was a smash hit, and a complete success of a marketing stunt. Releasing the game for free on disc in every marked box of cereal was a genius move, because it meant getting the game was the cost of a box of cereal, a paltry ask, and accomplished exactly what Ralston was out to do: sell more bland cereal. Chex sales rose a staggering 295% year over year with the release of Chex Quest, and the company's stock value shot up 48%. Pretty ridiculous for a corny kid-friendly Doom clone. And so, a sequel was greenlit by Ralston. Digital Cafe launched Chex Quest 2, Flemoids Take Chextropolis in 1997. It was up for grabs on their website for anybody who wanted to download it. The development of the second game was even more rushed than the first though, and it definitely shows in the level design and progression. It just wasn't quite up to par. The company had plans to let people post their own levels and updates on their site, which would have been a good way to keep things fresh, and there was even the hint of a possible third game. But that whole thing came to an end before it could even happen, with Ralston ending the Chex Quest promotion soon after Chex Quest 2, and the games basically disappeared from the internet in any official capacity. Chex Quest wouldn't be killed off so easily though. There was something about this quaint little marketing stunt that resonated with people, especially with the hints of a potential third game. Combine that charm with the overwhelming power of the Doom modding community, and some hardcore fans made their own unofficial versions of a third game, with the most popular called the Ultimate Chex Quest, in a nod to the Doom revision of the same name. Chex Quest had officially become a cult classic. This would be the end of the story for Chex Quest, it would seem, until an unexpected development over 10 years later. One of the original creators from Digital Cafe, Charles Jacoby, actually released another sequel, Chex Quest 3, in 2008. Built on a modern, community-made update of the Doom engine, it added contemporary features the Doom modding community had long been used to, like free aiming, graphical improvements and enhancements, widescreen and high-resolution monitor support, and a lot more. In addition to releasing an entirely new set of levels, Chex Quest 3 included the original 2 episodes as well, becoming a complete package similar to the full version of Doom, shipping with 3 episodes. This release also cleaned up the rushed level design from Chex Quest 2, making it the definitive way to experience the original game. Now, a nice side effect of running on a modern Doom engine is that it makes Chex Quest compatible with a lot of other tools and mods released by the Doom community over the years. I'm not saying that Chex Quest has a patch available on ModDB that makes the game compatible with the famous Brutal Doom mod that cranks up the violence, catharsis, and difficulty of the original Doom to 11 and is absolutely hilarious as a result, but I'm not saying it isn't either. The README included with Chex Quest 3 is pretty heartwarming. In addition to giving some interesting backstory to the original Chex Quest development, which helped flesh out this video, it also goes into how Jacoby was actually originally contacted by the developer for the Ultimate Chex Quest back in 2003 about possibly making new art assets for that mod. He was too swamped with other projects, but this interaction clued him into the cult following the humble game he'd made back in 1996 still had, and planted the seed for what would eventually become Chex Quest 3. When he'd start to feel burnt out, he'd go back to the forums, and all the excitement and interest around this new project would pump him back up to keep pushing forward. There was also an HD remaster of the original Chex Quest made in 2014, rebuilt entirely from the ground up in full 3D with Unreal Engine 4. Jacoby was again involved, leading a small team to create this homage to the original, this time officially in partnership with General Mills, who owns the Chex brand today. It's an interesting project to be sure, seeing all these elements from the 90s retooled with comparatively modern visuals. On the other hand though, the entire conceit and intrigue from Chex Quest originally was the fact that it was, at its core, Doom. And this bizarre juxtaposition of squeaky clean promotional product built on top of an overly violent mature rated game was kind of the whole gimmick. Take that away and you have, well, a squeaky clean promotional product. Right off the bat, it's clear that Chex Quest HD is a budget affair. I mean, it was a free game on Steam, so of course it is. And the original Chex Quest was also made on a shoestring budget, so that's not necessarily a knock. But while the old school Doom is charmingly rough looking today, Chex Quest HD just kinda looks rough. While you can excuse simple animations and basic sprite work in a Doom game since the entire engine is primitive, Chex Quest HD has just as little dynamics with none of the excuses. A lot of the models and animations actually look worse than the 1996 game. The shotgun Zorcher doesn't have the cool cartridge reloading animation like the original did, and I have no idea what's going on with the Chex Warrior's hands while holding the rapid-fire Zorcher. While Flemoid just kind of floating around makes sense in a basic engine like the original Doom, it's a lot more jarring when a full 3D model is just sliding around the world with basically no animations applied to it. It looks more like a glitch than a working product. While it's an interesting curiosity to see this cult classic as it would be made today, the fact that the first achievement, Shoot an Enemy, only has a 21% completion on Steam means that most people seem to have this sitting in their library for the meme and that's it. While the original Chex Quest is still fun to run around in today, I can't say the same for Chex Quest HD. It feels very much like the cynical cash grab that the original somehow avoided becoming, even if its intentions were good. Overall, Chex Quest is a bizarre nostalgia trip back to the 90s, when games were simple, cereal was a staple alongside your Saturday morning cartoons, and kids were playing first-person shooters about a dude wearing a cereal-shaped suit of armor, not screaming about your mom in a Call of Duty lobby, or Kamehamehaing your ass as Spider-Man in Fortnite. It was a simpler time, with simpler fun, but fun nonetheless. If you want to check out Chex Quest yourself, just search up Chex Quest 3 on ModDB. You don't even have to configure anything. Just download the game and run the exe. It's all ready to go.
Scoop and Zorch until it is done.